Hey Geo Nerds, here we are for another instalment of the Lost Creeks. This week we're doing Spring Hollow. Now Spring Hollow, you got to go way back, and you'll see in the map, way back before you find this on a map. A fair bit of it goes through a modern suburb called Spring Hill, but not all of it. Some of it goes down to the valley. One of the original water sources for Brisbane, a supplemental water source when the wheat stream wasn't enough. But nowadays it's very much lost. You will not find any of it above ground, but you can still see the scars in the landscape, and you do not need to be a psychogeographer to see these scars. Have a look in the Walkabout, you will see exactly where this creek used to go. So it was an important creek to early Brisbane, some amazing names of the early settlers involved. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll go and have a look at that now, and you know what I'm going to say.
Let's rock.
Hey Geo Nerds, just firstly I'd like to thank all the new subscribers to the channel. Subscribing really helps in the wild and weird world of YouTube. And if you want to get a ding every time I push out a new video, and I do quite a few of them, smash that little bell. So let's get on with the video. Also, as I learn more about the colonial history of Brisbane, I feel I really need to say this. I begin today by acknowledging the Turrbal people, traditional custodians of the land in which we live today, and I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge that they got royally dicked by my ancestors. I take no pride in the knowledge of what was done to these people and recognise their pain. My ancestors came from Northern Ireland, a land not too unfamiliar with land theft, murder and genocide. It just seems a shame we seem to want to do it all again here. Hey Geo Nerds, here we are whizzing into Brisbane. Oh, let's go down Albert Street. Here we are. Let's go down Albert Street. Here's the Suncorp building here with the clock with the random number generator on the roof. Segments missing everywhere. Just looking out over Roma Street there. We're going to whiz around and go right over to the valley and past a little bit actually over there. Cloudland. Got to do a video on that real soon. Spin around. Sorry about the vertigo, guys. And here we are. Now that's the entrance to Water Street down there next to that Jacaranda. That's now King Street where all those posh restaurants are. It's a lovely precinct now. And you see Water Street's a really strange street. It doesn't go anywhere like the other streets do. That's because this is Spring Hollow Creek. We're heading up towards Brunswick Street here. It goes through all this paraphernalia. Now, when you look at Water Street, which is this is the other side of Water Street, the right-hand lane as we look at it now is the street. The left-hand lane was the creek, pretty much. And when they needed to widen it, they just filled it in. Just pulling up, there's the old main roads building there, now called the Johnston. The creek goes underneath this row of trees here, between the backyards of these houses, crosses over here and hits the valley, the Spring Hill pool there, the Spring Hill baths, goes under these buildings. You'll see that more in the Walkabout. And it ends just here, and it starts where this red car is in this image, just between it and that tree is the beginning of this creek. So anyway, what we'll do now is we'll have a look at some maps and we'll quantify and qualify. See you there. Well folks, here we are. We're going to have a look at Spring Hollow. This is an old map. You've got to go a long way back, 1878, to see Spring Hollow on a map. This intersection down here is where the Spring Hollow Creek intersects the Yorks Hollow Creek. We're down in the valley here. We're just crossing Brunswick Street over to where that kink is in Water Street, which is still there, and then you can see the creek there deviating from the street there. It doesn't do that anymore. Up into Spring Hill, across Fortescue Street where the main road buildings used to be, up where the the Spring Hill Baths is now, and up into the top end of Boundary Street there. This is where St Andrew's War Memorial Hospital is now, to give you an idea. And this is where the Spring Hill Pool is now. This map, I said you got to go back. This is the 1850s. This is an old map for Brisbane. And this is where it is, so yeah, not much up there yet, not a lot of surveying, bit of guesswork, but it's a swamp, they know that, and that's the way it is. It's Really, that's really old. 1844 that map is actually. I'm sorry, the next one's 1850. 1844. That's a really old map of Brisbane. This one's 1858. You can see a little bit of surveying being done, and the creek is still there. Spring Hollow Creek running right through the middle of Spring Hill. Some interesting features there, and we've got another one coming up from 1865. Not a lot happened from 58 to 65. Nice map. But yeah, you can see there's a little bit more street detail on there. It's still a creek, wandering in and out of the street around it. Probably didn't have a lot of water in it all the time, as you could imagine. This is Brisbane after all. This one, yeah, Gregory Terrace is on this one. She's been surveyed. It's all you can see. Bowen Bridge Road heading off up there. And yeah, it's more of a street there. That was 1874, which is about the time of that drainage map we were looking at. Here's the LiDAR. Thought I'd draw it on. Makes the countryside look a little bit interesting. This is where it runs. You can see the topology there of how it goes till it goes down here, and it intersects the Yorks Hollow Creek. And being a T-Rocks video, of course, we've got to have some geology. The purple, Narrowleaf Fernvale Shale, the green, Brisbane Tuff, harder than concrete. The yellow is gravel laid down by those. So this is surface geology, so it goes down about 10-20 metres. And here's the creek running through here. Notice it runs in a straight line. All creeks meander. They have to, especially old creeks. It's a really old creek. So it doesn't meander because it can't. It's essentially running in very hard rock, and it's running in a geological feature. You know, the ridge at St Paul's Terrace and the ridge at Gregory Terrace, it's stuck in between them. And if we have a look at the topo here, we can see those two ridges. They're in yellow because they're higher. It starts up here in the high ground, runs through there, and the low ground. It made the low ground, and the low ground made it, I think. And down here till it intersects. Anyway, a lot of history in this area, beautiful old place. Let's have a look at some of that now. Well, there's a lot of history in Spring Hill. This is a photo from 1864, and down in the gully there is the Spring Hollow Creek. See people growing bananas and whatever. Yeah, and 1862, this is a very old photo. Spring Hollow Creek running through the centre of the shot there. Not sure, I think this is looking up towards the grammar school, but I think it's too early to actually see that. This is from 1867, and the Spring Hollow Creek is right in the foreground there, just right in front of the photo, and you can see the Brisbane Grammar building up on the background. And yeah, very early photo of Brisbane. To 1890, just before 1890, they're building my favourite church in Brisbane, St Paul's Presbyterian Church, on what is now St Paul's Terrace. What used to be Boundary Street, used to be Leichhardt Street, and was renamed to St Paul's Terrace for this church. This is what it looked like when it was finished. It's a beautiful church. Have a look at my Brisbane Tuff video if you want to see some details. That dark stone is all Brisbane Tuff. The light trim is all Albion sandstone from Petrie's Quarry. Beautiful church. This is Union Street. You can stand here and see this shot, and if you go and look at one of my recent time travel videos, it's exactly what we do. And in Walkabout, you're going to see more of it because I do the same thing again. Some early history. Well, there's a guy called George Dickens. He was a butcher. Came out from England. Was a butcher down in the valley. Bought quite a lot of the land around Spring Hollow, which is why you see Dickens Street in Spring Hill there. And most of the houses in the upper part are built on land that Dickens first purchased. Went on to become a hotelier in the valley, and for quite a long time. Seemed like a pretty good guy. I think his family used to sell their name on a brand of fermented apple juice. Can't be sure about that. And as I said before, Boundary Street, this is the Boundary Street Quarry. And when these guys want to quarry up to your house, mate, they quarry up to your house. You can see the tuff band there that guy's leaning on, and you see the fence just hanging in the air. Not sure we get away with that today. Here's another photo of that quarry. It's now where the school is, and I'll show you that in the Walkabout off Water Street. It goes between Water Street and St Paul's Terrace, and bounded by, guess what? Quarry Street. Ta-da. Anyway, here's a photo. Look at these horses. I love horses, and these poor things, they just worked and worked and worked. You know, amazing to see. I suppose now we need to talk about the Spring Hill Baths. See, I got it right for once. This is when it opened. A really nice place. September 1914. Took a while to build it. It's got 1886 on the outside. That's a fantasy. It wasn't open then. It was being built. It did get done, but not completely. It was open. Didn't have a roof on it or anything. Let's talk about some modern history. The massacre, the Spring Hill shooting massacre. Some Muppet, and I'm not going to mention his name, you can look it up if you want to. And he was suffering from mental illness, let's get this right, but got his application to join a model plane club rejected, so decided he'd buy a 22 and 500 rounds of ammunition and start walking through Spring Hill murdering people. And he did. A few people in Boundary Street over at Spring Hill, right through there, walking back to where he lived, which is the hostages held tag on here, and had a heap of hostages in there. Coppers showed up. You can imagine the tactical response unit in the 1970s wasn't probably what it is today. And in the end, you can read the details, it's all on the net, but the building was stormed by 3 coppers, and I won't mention their names because, you know, they did their job. A bloke called John O'Gorman, which we'll talk more about, Noel Golshwecki, and another guy called Constable Crotch. They stormed the room, knocked the door down, fired a few shots, tackled the bastard. This is where it happened in those days, and this is where it is today. This is what it looks like. You go over there, you can have a look, not much to see. This is where the coppers are sitting in that photo, and it was a bit foreshortened because they obviously used a telephoto lens, so the press were a fair way back. And this is the house that happened in, and it's still got rooms to let to this day. And yeah, look, the guy ended up in a nut house, and then he ended up in jail for a long time for multiple murders. I won't mention the victims' names. This is John O'Gorman, as we probably all remember him from seeing him on television, now or then known as Inspector John O'Gorman. And look, you can say a lot about coppers here and there and everywhere, but I'll tell you, these blokes, those 3 guys, and this guy in particular, because he's the one that tackled him, on that day, they earned their pay. The public really doesn't care whether you come home or not, but they really did earn their pay that day, so kudos to them. Anyway, let's get on and have a look at the Walkabout, see what this place looks like from the ground. Well folks, here we are on Brunswick Street, just looking at Water Street going from our left to our right, crossing here. You can clearly see that's the low point in the landscape because it's where the Spring Hollow Creek was. Man, his music over there, great music shop. Bloke in there really knows his synths pretty well, modular synths, but anyway, it's a good shop. Not a sponsor. Here we are on Water Street. This is that kink I showed you in Water Street. It's still there because it followed the creek. The creek obviously dodged around something in the landscape. They just built the street on top of it, as you do. And away you go. Here's this is the site of the old Leichhardt quarry we talked about. This entire block, even including that big grey high-rise in the background, is on that quarry site. It's now the school and a heritage-listed playground. Beautiful place, by the way. You can go in there. Plenty of quarry walls. When I was a nipper, this was the RSEQ headquarters, now owned by St Joseph's, as is everything in Spring Hill nearly. Beautiful building, crazy building. Looks great. And we're on Water Street again here. As you can see, just to the point where it ducks up to go to Boundary Street, so of course it goes underneath, the creek goes underneath this block of flats, and there's a drain right there because that's where it is. It starts heading up towards the Spring Hill pool, and we're following it here. It's just on the other side of this fence is the actual low point, but we're walking as close as we can. Really nice little laneway in front of us there, little leafy laneway. And yeah, it's a pretty cool place actually, this part of town. I really like it. Still a bit of garbage on the street here from the floods. People had water ingress, they put it out the front for the council to get. Council miss it, just stays there and rots. Okay, there's the creek coming across the road there. You can see that, it's obvious that's the low point. Runs under that place and runs up behind those houses. Here we are up on Boundary Street. There's St Andrew's Hospital. This is Torrington Street, used to be called Arthur Street on the old maps. Changed its name for some reason, and again, you don't need to be a psychogeographer to see where the creek is in this street. Right down there, we'll go and stand in a minute. There's the baths there, the Spring Hill baths, and we're standing in the creek here looking up at St Andrews and the Spring Hill baths. Pretty cool. Sorry about the zoom, it's a bit vicious. But yeah, lovely building that. Worth a visit. This is Bradley Street, the next street over. Again, don't need to be a psycho-drogger to see where the creek crosses Bradley Street. Goes into these houses here. This house here, we're looking at across the roof of the second floor of this house. 555 Boundary Street. Yeah, it's a long way down. It'd be 20 feet down to the actual ground level there because it's been so built up. The next street up is called Parish Street, and again, this little Queenslander we're looking at, this is the second floor. The first floor is down at creek level. The street's been built up. You can see where the creek crosses there. Very obvious. We're right at the top of the creek here, and here's the source. This is where it starts, right here. And you could probably say on that manhole cover, but I doubt if that's it. It goes underneath those flats, heads back down towards the valley, and that's where the watershed is. Behind us is used to be the Watermark Hotel, as mentioned in a Midnight Oil song. Beautiful old cottage there, obviously heritage listed. That's it. Hey Geo nerds, that's your lot for this week. We've done Spring Hollow. I like this place. It's a good place to walk. I really like walking around Spring Hill. Some of those houses, I reckon 60% of the houses in Spring Hill have been there well over 100 years, which is really cool. Good geology there. A heap of the Narranleaf Fernvale Shale in the upper end, into the tuff down the bottom end, and then the gravels when you get down into the valley. Great fun to look at. You see the cuttings and exposures and whatever. And yeah, so I really enjoyed it. A bit of history there. And you got the big St Andrews War Memorial Hospital now. It takes up quite a bit of Spring Hill. Between the grammar school, the St Andrews Hospital and St Joseph's, that is most of Spring Hill really. They really do take up quite a bit of it. So anyway, that's your lot for this week. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the new subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please do. It's free, and it does help the channel. And yeah, anyway, we'll keep going. And actually, while I was there, I realised they just sold the what was called the Watermark, is now called the Hotel on the Park. And apparently it was really cheap because they found out it was on shale.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this stuff, and hey, you made it this far, please help us to poke the algorithm and smash that like button like it's Space 1999. And if you want to see more, subscribe and share this with, say, 1,000 of your closest friends. And let's see just how far that little algorithm can go before its CPU explodes. Cop you later.